Picture two families on the same street in Austin, Texas. Same zip code, same school district, same property taxes. The Garcias next door just finished a full kitchen renovation, quartz countertops, custom cabinetry, the kind of open concept that gets 400 likes on Instagram. New SUV in the driveway, kids in travel soccer. The husband just got a promotion to $185,000 a year. And they celebrated with a trip to Cabo. The Nguyens, two doors down, haven't changed much since they moved in 8 years ago. Same couch, same 10-year-old Camry. They planted a vegetable garden last spring. Quiet people, nice enough. Nothing to talk about, financially speaking. The Nguyens have $890,000 in index funds. The Garcias have $47,000 in a 401k and $134,000 in combined consumer debt. Same street, completely different futures. This isn't a coincidence, and it's not a fluke. It's a pattern that shows up across American financial data with remarkable consistency. A 2023 study published in the Journal of Financial Planning found that household savings rates are inversely correlated with visible consumption spending, meaning the more people spend on things others can see, the less they accumulate in things others can't. The researchers weren't surprised by the finding. They were surprised by how strong it was. Most people assume that minimalism is a lifestyle choice, a preference like being vegan or preferring cold brew. What the data actually shows is that minimalism, real minimalism, not the curated Instagram kind with matching linen sets and $400 ceramic bowls, is one of the most reliable predictors of net worth accumulation in the American middle class. Not income, not education, not zip code. Behavior. The distinction matters because income is the number most people optimize for. They negotiate salaries, they chase promotions, they take on side hustles, and none of it closes the gap. According to the Federal Reserve's 2022 survey of consumer finances, the median net worth of American families earning between $100,000 and $149,000 per year is $281,000. For families earning $150,000 to $249,000, that number is $598,000. But here's the uncomfortable part. A meaningful segment of families earning under $75,000 have accumulated more than both groups. The variable isn't the income, it's what gets done with it. Think about what that actually means for a second. Someone making $68,000 a year in Nebraska, driving a paid-off pickup truck, eating lunch at home, maxing out a Roth IRA every January, that person can have a higher net worth at 50 than a dual income household pulling $240,000 in a coastal city. Not because of luck, because of the compounding gap between what those two households spend on things that depreciate and what they put into things that don't. The minimalist, and we're talking about the actual version, not the aesthetic, isn't making sacrifices. They've just resolved a question that most high earners never bother to ask, which is, what is this spending actually buying me? Sarah and David Kirby, real people profiled in a 2021 Vox piece on FIRE movement households, lived in a 980 square foot apartment in Portland for 6 years after David's income crossed $160,000. They drove one car between them. They cooked most of their meals. Their friends assumed they were saving for a down payment. They were actually saving 61% of their take-home income and hit $1.1 million in liquid assets at 38. Their neighbors in the building, a couple with a similar income, visible through the high-end furniture they had replaced twice, and the Audi they leased for the third time, had approximately $90,000 in retirement savings. and were carrying $28,000 in credit card balances. Both couples worked hard. Both couples earned good money. One couple asked a different question about what the money was for. Here's what makes this pattern so consistent. High earners in America are under enormous social pressure to perform their income. The marketing machinery of this country is specifically designed to exploit that pressure. When someone's salary crosses $100,000, the targeting algorithms shift. The credit card offers change. The car dealerships start mailing. The luxury apartment complexes run ads. Every financial product becomes a mirror, reflecting back what you could look like if you just spent a little more. A 2022 McKinsey Consumer Sentiment Survey found that American households earning above $100,000 reported significantly higher lifestyle inflation than any other income bracket. Specifically, their discretionary spending increased faster than their income every single year between 2018 and 2022. They were getting richer on paper and poorer in practice, working more hours to sustain consumption that was expanding faster than the paychecks funding it. The minimalist household doesn't get caught in that loop, not because they're morally superior, because they have defined the finish line differently. The Garcia family on that Austin street isn't making bad decisions by conventional American standards. They're doing what people do when they reach a certain income level and absorb the social expectations attached to it. The renovation made sense. The SUV made sense. The travel sports made sense. Each individual decision had a reasonable justification. The problem isn't any single decision. It's the architecture of all of them combined. A financial life built around producing signals rather than building positions. If this perspective on wealth is shifting how you see your own finances, consider subscribing to the channel. We're building a community here at Amelia Invests focused on the math of freedom, not just appearances. Now, let's look at why wealth is actually what you don't see. Morgan Housel, in The Psychology of Money, makes an observation that sounds obvious until you sit with it. He writes that wealth is what you don't see. The cars not bought, the diamonds not purchased, the first-class upgrades declined. Wealth is hidden by nature. Spending is visible by nature. And because we can only observe what's visible, we perpetually mistake the people who spend the most for the people who have the most. This isn't a recent problem, but the social media era made it dramatically worse. A 2023 study from the University of Chicago Booth School of Business found that social media use was positively associated with both luxury goods purchases and lower retirement savings contributions among Americans aged 25 to 45. The mechanism is comparison. People see curated consumption, the vacation, the renovation, the car, and recalibrate their own baseline upward. The researchers estimated that the average American spends an additional $1,200 to $1,800 per year in consumption directly attributable to social comparison effects. That number has likely increased since the study was completed. The minimalist household statistically spends less time on social media and reports lower rates of social comparison anxiety. The causality probably runs both directions, but the compounding effect on their balance sheet is measurable. That $1,500 a year in avoided comparison spending, invested at historical market returns over 30 years, is roughly $150,000 in additional net worth. That's not a rounding error. That's a car, or a year of retirement, or someone's entire emergency fund. What the psychology research keeps surfacing is that visible consumption is fundamentally a social activity. It's not about the object, it's about the audience. Veblen figured this out in 1899, and nothing about human behavior has changed since. The luxury SUV isn't about transportation, it's about what the SUV communicates to the carpool lane. The kitchen renovation isn't about cooking, it's about the Instagram story. And what happens when the neighbors come over for dinner? Strip away the audience, and the logic collapses entirely. Minimalism breaks the loop not by being anti consumption, but by being audience agnostic. The Nguyen family doesn't need to perform their financial success because their financial success isn't a performance. It exists in spreadsheets and brokerage accounts. It doesn't require witnesses. The long-term math here is relentless. Take two 35-year-olds both earning $130,000 a year. One saves 20%, $26,000 annually. One saves 6%, $7,800 annually. Over 30 years at a 7% average return, the first person accumulates approximately $2.6 million. The second accumulates roughly $740,000. They worked the same job. They earn the same income. The gap between them is entirely behavioral. And here's the part that makes it visceral. The person who saved 6% probably looks significantly wealthier throughout those 30 years. Better car, bigger house, better vacations, more impressive surfaces. They'll spend their 60s working to close a gap that their behavioral choices created across 3 decades. The minimalist household has something else going for it that rarely gets discussed: optionality. The Nguyens on that Austin street can make decisions that the Garcias structurally cannot. If David Garcia gets laid off, the household needs to replace $185,000 in income within a few months, or the entire financial architecture collapses. The mortgage, the car payment, the renovation loans, the credit cards, none of it can survive a gap. Pham Nguyen could take 6 months off tomorrow, and the family wouldn't feel it. He has negotiating leverage his neighbor will never have because his neighbor has consumed it. This asymmetry shows up everywhere. The minimalist employee can turn down a toxic promotion because they don't need the money. They can quit and start a business because they have a runway. They can walk away from a bad client because they are not desperate. Financial independence isn't a destination, it's a power structure, and the people who look the most financially comfortable often have the least of it. A 2024 Ramsey Solutions survey of over 10,000 American millionaires found that 94% of them described their lifestyle as middle class or below, not performatively, genuinely. They don't see themselves as wealthy because they don't perform wealth in the ways the culture has taught us to recognize it. They live in the same neighborhood. They drive the same cars. They eat at the same restaurants. Their wealth is structural, embedded in accounts and assets, rather than theatrical. What that data suggests is that most people walking past actual millionaires every day don't recognize them. Because millionaires don't look like millionaires on TV. They look like the neighbor with the garden and the 10-year-old Camry. They look unremarkable on purpose or by habit, and either way, the result is the same. The cultural programming around this runs deep. Americans are conditioned from childhood to associate visible success with actual success. The big house signals achievement. The luxury car signals success. The expensive watch signals arrival. These associations are so embedded that even people who intellectually understand the data continue to make decisions as though the associations are true. They know the BMW depreciates 30% in 3 years. They buy it anyway. They know the renovation won't return its value. They do it anyway, because the emotional pull of the signal is stronger than the intellectual case against it. Minimalism in this context isn't really about owning fewer things. It's about having done the harder cognitive work of separating identity from consumption. of deciding that what you have in your brokerage account matters more than what your neighbors believe about your lifestyle. That security is worth more than status. That compound interest is more satisfying than social approval. Most people never get there. Not because they are bad at math, because they are human, which means they're wired for status competition whether they want to be or not. The Nguyens on that Austin street aren't enlightened. They're just early. They figured out, maybe through a book, maybe through watching someone else's financial collapse up close, maybe through a single conversation that reframed everything, that the game most people are playing has a terrible prize. Two doors down, the Garcias are still playing it. The question isn't which house looks better from the street. The question is which family can afford to stop working. One of them already can. If this intersection of psychology and finance resonates with you, consider subscribing to Amelia Invests. We explore the math behind the decisions that actually build freedom, not just status. I'll see you in the next video.